Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Four Quarter Talk podcast with myself, Jack Brazil, and my co-host, as always, Josh Mazuke. So, what's up?
So, what's up? Let's get into this.
Let's get straight into this one. We've got uni in an hour, so we got to zoom through this one. But we're going to start with a team that we thought we'd talk about this season, but maybe not in this tone or this light. It's the Miami Heat, Josh. I think it's about time we talk about the Miami Heat. To set the scene, the Miami Heat obviously went to the NBA Finals last year, kind of against all the odds. They weren't the favourites to get there at all. And in the NBA Finals, they gave the Lakers a good series. They pushed them to 6 games. It wasn't easy by any means. And a lot of that was attributed to that Heat culture that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, the head coach, have installed into that franchise. So coming into the season, we were expecting big things from this team. A team, they've got another year of experience under the belt. They've got that camaraderie from going to the finals together. Everyone's put in a shift, but it hasn't quite worked out that way. Obviously, Jimmy Butler missed the first 10 or 12 games of the season due to injury. And as their star player, they missed him big time and weren't able to turn some good performances into wins, and he wasn't their only absence. They were relying on a lot of two-way players and rookies to fill in those minutes. Bam Adebayo's taken a big step up this year, but without Jimmy Butler, it just wasn't resulting in wins. Since he's come back, they've looked a lot better. This is maybe one of the best versions of Jimmy Butler we've seen so far this season, averaging damn near a triple-double. And I think when it's all said and done, we'll look back on this season and think, how wasn't Jimmy Butler an all-star this year? But obviously, he was deemed to not have played enough games during the all-star voting process, so that's why he won't be in the game, most likely. Josh, where do you think this team goes from here? Obviously, they've lost 3 of their last 4 games. How can they improve on this poor start?
Yeah, so we alluded to this a couple episodes ago because we were talking about them and the Nuggets and how their play has been different from the playoffs. And one of the things we mentioned was that not having to play on the road and things like that. And this season they're 6-10 on the road, which is absolutely terrible for their standard. Obviously they've missed a few players, but they just don't look like the same team right now. And a lot of that has to do with the depth that they had. They let go of Jay Crowder, who was definitely a big piece for them. And then the disappointments from a couple of players. Obviously, Bam has stepped up in Jimmy Butler's absence, and he's shown that he is a future star, if not a star right now. But Tyler Hero and Robinson have been pretty disappointing this season. They haven't really taken the leap that you'd expect. A lot of people thought that with Jimmy out, and even Goran Dragic out at times as well, you'd think that Hero would start to make that step himself, because he seemed like a very confident young player, playing as one of the youngest players, if not, I think he was the youngest starting player in the finals last season. Yeah, and he's kind of regressed, and you can tell the Heat put a lot of stock into him because what's not looking so great now, but during that Harden fiasco and that trading process, they refused to trade for Harden, citing that they didn't want to let go of Hero or Robinson, which is just looking absolutely terrible now.
Yeah.
Obviously, we keep talking about how their culture will kind of carry them through, but it is a bit alarming to see that they're especially struggling on the road, seeming that right now there isn't really there aren't fans in most stadiums, so that shouldn't really be an issue, and that is something that people was pointing to say that most of their success was because of no crowd pressure, or because there were no home or away games and it was a neutral setting. So it is looking a bit scary now because they are sitting outside of the playoffs right now at 13 and 17.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure right now. I think having Jimmy back and how he's playing right now, I think he's playing even better than he was last regular season.
He's really continued on how he was in the finals, especially. He had that 40-point triple-double in the finals. So he's really continued that form.
Every time I look at him, he has a triple-double. His output has been amazing. So you kind of just need those other ancillary parts to step up themselves and help him, because I think you can't depend on one player too much.
I think for me, it's very reminiscent of the Jimmy Butler I was seeing in his final years in Chicago, when he was like carrying loads of the load on all sides of the court, on defense and on offense. Like clearly the star player of the team, and he's a guy that will never take a possession off. So he's going to be on go for 48 minutes of the game or however long he's playing for that game. And he's doing a little bit of everything right now to try and help this team get through this rough patch. But as you said, it's not just the young players who haven't done as well. Even players like Goran Dragic, who was looked at as that second option on that Heat team that went to the finals last year.
He was a leading scorer for most of the playoffs.
He's really took a step back. Looks like age is kind of beating his ass a little bit. Similar thing with Andre Iguodala. He's looked pretty awful for this Heat team when he was supposed to be that kind of glue guy that we saw for the Warriors, and that hasn't worked at all. There's been a few surprises in Gabe Vincent and Precious Achiuwa, who have looked decent for their first years in the NBA, but then that's not the standard the Heat are looking to play at. They're looking to compete like they did last year. So those players that have that experience with the team last year really have to take responsibility for this poor start. Look what they can improve on, and I think with players like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, it's probably like they're obviously both shooters, so it's probably just a case of they need to keep shooting. Eventually, those shots will fall. This happens.
Also, there's that element of that they're not catching anyone by surprise. They're not, Duncan Robinson isn't looked at as, that D3 player that came in and surprised everyone anymore. And Tyler Hero isn't just that random rookie. Everyone is actually scheming for them now. But looking at the Heat, last year when I looked at them towards the end of the regular season, I thought, this is a playoff built team. They didn't have the greatest season last year, obviously, as they were, one of the lowest seeded teams to make the finals in quite a while. Obviously, injuries has played a role, but I still don't think without the injuries that they'd be, where everyone was expecting them to be, because coming into the season, the preview had them at fourth in the league overall.
Yeah.
No, fourth in the East. So they definitely need to step up. But the problem is that even though injuries has played a role, I still don't know if last year was an aberration and if they are that finals level team, and that's what they're gonna have to prove this year with the East is looking a bit deeper this year, with teams like the Nets becoming contenders now.
Very close.
And the 76ers. So it's gonna be a much tougher road to make it back to the finals.
Well, just to tell you how close the East is right now, between the 12th and the 3rd seed, there's only 5 games that separate them. So the Heat could easily make it into the playoffs, and I do still think they will. And what I said earlier, I said they lost 3 out of their last 4. That was actually incorrect. They've lost 3 out of their last 5. They've obviously just held off the Lakers yesterday. So that was a really good win, and they had a good win over the Kings before. So there is signs maybe that they are turning that corner.
Yeah.
But I do still expect them to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're holding them at a different standard now.
Yeah.
They're not a surprise team anymore. And
do you think that was maybe of detriment to them almost?
Yeah, they were the underdog. Sneaking up on teams, outworking teams, and they were more ready. They were more mentally strong. But I guess now that it's a new season, everyone's with that same mindset, and they're not in a bubble situation. It's kind of, have they kind of played to their ceiling? Yeah, it's interesting.
You would think not though, because the core pieces of those teams are still quite young. So you would expect them to get better and better.
Not overall, but I mean, like for that season, they kind of overachieved, and were they kind of ahead of schedule at that point?
Yeah, I think they definitely did overachieve. I think they benefited a lot from the home court advantage stuff, everything being played on neutral ground in Disneyland. They probably benefited a lot from that. So in a normal year, that same team with that same mentality may not have gotten that far. But it was still a very impressive playoff run.
Oh yeah, you can't take anything away from that, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure the Miami Heat are scratching their heads as much as we are as to why they're not doing as well. But I feel like a few players just need to reflect on the season they're having and try and turn it around.
Yeah, that Lakers game kind of summed it up. It was quite weird because normally I can't remember a finals rematch in the regular season that was, less anticipated than that game.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of at all.
yeah. It flew under the radar a lot.
Yeah.
And
Battle of the
obviously
bubble floors.
this was a AD-less Lakers, but the Lakers have still looked pretty good without AD. So it's no mean feat beating them, and hopefully they can use that as a stepping stone. In their next four, they've got a bit of a mixed schedule. They've got your Thunder, so that should be an easy win for them.
All right.
They've got the Raptors, who are another seesaw team, kind of up and down. Started the season underwhelmingly, probably won't have an all-star. So that should be an interesting game. Then they've got the red hot Utah Jazz, who knows? The Jazz will obviously go into that game favourites, but that might suit the Heat. And then they've got the Hawks, who have also been disappointing. So we'll see if they can pick up a few wins over that stretch. I can see 3 wins out of those 4.
Yeah, they'll definitely want to go into the All-Star break hot, to give themselves a bit.
And if they win 3 of those next 4, the narrative about this team kind of completely changes a little bit. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye out on the Heat. See how they get on, and we might revisit this topic. We'll see. But let's move on to our next topic, and we need to talk about Damian Lillard. And Josh, I've got a question for you. What does Damian Lillard need to do to win the MVP award? Because Damian Lillard has been playing at this type of MVP level for 4 or 5 seasons now. It seems like he's always on the fringes of the conversation. This year, he's maybe breaking into the top 3 with the Trailblazers sitting at an 18-11 record in a very competitive West as well. You've got a lot of teams in the West that are over 500, and the Trailblazers, like a lot of teams, have had a lot of injuries, specifically to CJ and Nurkic, who are the number 2 and 3 options on that team, and they still haven't fallen off behind Damian Lillard's fantastic play. But what does he need to do to actually win that award? He's been close, but hasn't quite been able to clinch it as of yet.
Yeah. So he's averaging 30. 4 and 7, 4 and 8. Pretty good splits. 45, 38, 93. So that's his type of output. The MVP award is, it's not that consistent. There's no criteria. There's a mix of, sometimes it's best player on the best team, but most of the time it is, it will go to a top 3 team. The recent aberration was with Russell Westbrook. Obviously, he put up historical stats, and they had that team at not making the playoffs, and they managed to get that 6th seed. The thing with Dame that's let him down is they've been hit with the injury bug for several seasons now, and it shows when they get to that playoff point and they get their players back that they're not the team that the regular season record suggests. Obviously he should be getting points for carrying a team that has been missing, their top 3, like 2 of their top 3 players. But it's just that issue of he needs to have absolutely spectacular stats. Obviously, averaging 30 is great, but when you have players like, Joel Embiid, averaging 30 and tackling on double doubles, or even Jokic from the near triple double
as well.
Yeah, in the same conference. So in different conferences, but it just makes it difficult because you kind of need to, the lower down you are the table, the more you need to stand out. And then obviously there's the narratives as well. And it doesn't help that he plays in Portland. They don't really boost, because there's not many games where I see a team that isn't a big market, showing up on your feed and things like that. So that helps to it. That contributes to the narrative. The media plays a big role. So yeah, it's a bit difficult, but he's definitely deserving.
Yeah, he is definitely deserving. And obviously the news came out this week that he's not going to start the All-Star game. Luka Doncic will actually take that place, and the voting was incredibly close. It was decided on a few fan votes, I think. So, is Damian Lillard a disrespected superstar in a sense? He's putting up these numbers for 5-6 years now, consistently great. Always hitting the clutch shots, always taking over in fourth quarters, has big moments in the playoffs, but is still getting snubbed from starting the All-Star game. Obviously, I had that in my list as well, but I just wanted to be a little bit different.
You had the MVP candidate not starting, but you had anyway.
Never. I mean, if you want to watch that, you can go back to our
but then that goes back to the stats, doesn't it? That goes back to those stats, and that's probably why you favorite.
What I'm saying is Damian Lillard the ultimately disrespected superstar?
Yeah, I think Dame and the Trailblazers are often, disappointed every year, it seems every year they're viewed as on the outside looking in for the playoffs, and he finds a way to get them to that 4, 5, sometimes even 3 seed. They were predicted to be the 9th seed this year, and right now he has them, 4th, I think. Wait, let me check. Yeah, he has them 5th. So he seems to always be able to contribute, and that is with those injuries that are consistently there every year. So there definitely is that big market bias there. I believe that if he played for the Lakers, obviously he'd be up there. But pretty much any if he played for Dallas, he'd probably be looked more as that. And then obviously, the media kind of pushed that narrative going in, because we all expected a huge year from Luka, based on the fact that just kind of the hype started to build, and then sometimes they pick which players they want to focus on for that year, and then the others kind of have to do something crazy to get in there.
Yeah. Well, looking back, if we're going to compare Luka and Dame, Damian Lillard's, their stats are probably very, very similar. Although Luka maybe does a bit more rebounding, but Luka hasn't really found a way to turn those performances into consistent wins, whereas Damian Lillard has done that for years now. And it makes you wonder, like, why he didn't get the nod over Luka to start the game. Maybe winning is coming out of fashion now, and people just focus really on those top 3 teams, and below that it's kind of a grey area. But Damian Lillard should be getting a heck of a lot more credit for what he's done with his Trailblazers team. As I said, very depleted. CJ was on fire this year, and it really doesn't look like they've missed him at all, because Damian Lillard has stepped that production up in that area. And then Nurkic, who we touted as someone who can be a real difference maker on this team if he wants to be. They haven't missed him either, and his Cantor has stepped up brilliantly in this place. They've obviously got Robert Covington, who's always solid. Carmelo, who will probably be a bucket until he's about 60 years old. But everything good around this team centers around Damian Lillard. So I think he should be getting a heck of a lot more credit. But nevertheless, let's move on to our next topic, and it's slander o'clock again. We haven't
back with another Josh Mazzucchi slander segment here.
We haven't had this segment for a while, but I think
it's a recurring guest as well.
I've given Josh the green light to take the mic, and this segment is based solely around Mike Budenholzer. The Milwaukee Bucks are coming off a 5-game losing streak. They've won their last 2, but before that they had lost 5 straight, which is something you don't associate with this Bucks team at all. They're usually dominant in the regular season, but have struggled this year. Josh, the floor is yours. Speak your mind, bro.
Man, I'm getting bored, man. I'm getting bored. We keep having the same guests on this segment, man. Coach Bud, you tell me, what's my critique with Coach Bud every season?
He doesn't adapt.
Doesn't adjust, and he's getting exposed again. I mean,
and this time in the regular season, not even the playoffs.
These teams seem to they don't want to play that playoff defense because they want to catch them by surprise or whatever. But now this year they just don't care; they're just going for it. And watching Bucks games, well, firstly, it's difficult to watch Bucks games because it just pisses me off. But it's not even it's getting to the point where it's not even the other team's scheme. It's literally Bud playing into their hands on purpose. So right now they're just completely relying on Giannis to do everything, to play make. They're treating him like he's a guard when he's a big.
Surprise! That's never happened before, has it?
I mean,
them relying on Giannis.
I think that I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that with the acquisition of Drew Holiday, which was a perfect acquisition for them, and with Chris Middleton stepping up, that they really had the chance to break out this year. But he's just refusing to use those pieces. This team is almost perfectly built for what they could do. They're not a free agency destination. This is as perfectly built of a team as Giannis has had around him. He's got the shooting, he's got the playmaking. They could have a system that allows them to use Drew Holiday as that primary playmaker and use, Chris Middleton stepped up his game and, he's turned to, he's quickly becoming more of a playmaker himself. And he's, every time you look, he's near the top of the league in ISO scoring. So they have the pieces there, but he just refuses. Every time I look at a possession, there was just back-to-back possession where Giannis was at the top of the key with the ball, ISO. I don't know why that's being called. He dribbles in, doesn't score, goes other possession, comes back, same thing. Yeah. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't want to keep. I feel like there's like an hour worth of footage of me saying the same thing, over the course of these episodes.
You need to send that file to Mike Budenholzer. He might change his ways.
I don't understand how he doesn't know. Like, they've managed to win a couple now. Obviously, they've had Drew Holiday out, which has just made it worse. But I mean, that's not an excuse because they've got Chris Middleton, who normally provides that playmaking himself. Yeah. They're sitting at third, despite that. But it's just not sustainable. They've won 2 in a row now, but in Giannis's last games, which includes those 5 straight losses, in his last 7 games, he's averaging 38. He's had a 38, 18 and 4 game, a 29, 3, 12 and 8, 34, 10 and 8, 24, 17 and 10, 29, 15 and 6, 47, 11 and 5. And it's not producing wins because, as we saw with the Heat, they're like, okay, Giannis, you do your thing because we know Coach Budenholzer is going to have a predictable offense. He's not going to let anyone else get involved, and they're just going to move it. But a new thing that I want to point out is their defensive side of the ball, which in previous seasons, including that last season that they had, it's produced good results in the regular season. His philosophy is to protect the paint at all costs and give up open threes, which for some reason in other seasons, teams weren't shooting that great against them. But now teams are shooting around 42% with those open threes. And, they're absolutely collapsing the paint. They've got tremendous defensive players on that team. They've got Brook Lopez, who's a tremendous rim protector. They've got Giannis there. And they'll just randomly help off of Giannis. They'll have 5 players in the paint for no reason when Giannis can clearly handle that assignment by himself, and they're just giving up these open threes. And now they're 5th in allowing three. No, they're 5th in percentage against them shooting threes, and they're 1st in allowing open threes. Yeah, and now they're just getting buried for that.
Yeah, teams are really knocking down the 3 this year. I think across the league. And Mike Budenholzer, this is the time where you think, okay, we've lost 5 straight. We're getting torched from the 3. Giannis can't do it all by himself. You have to make an adjustment. But his reputation precedes him, and I don't think anyone thinks he will do that. And I think his job is on the line here.
But at this point, man, he must have the GM's nudes or something.
Do you know what I think, right? I think Mike Budenholzer has Giannis on fantasy, so he's making him do everything. He's like, that's what I think.
It is just getting ridiculous.
It's getting boring now talking about it, but it's something you have to talk about because this Bucks team does have such a high ceiling. You got a guy who's, a top 5 player in the league. Is one of the last 2 MVPs. Became one of the only players to win a Defense Player of the Year and an MVP in the same season. You've seen him on paper like you've built a perfect team around him. Why is that not translated into better success for your team? And you got to look at the coach. And I think
I'm a Bucks fan, I'm happy.
Days and numbers, I think
about those losses, and I want us to continue to lose because the problem that happens is most of these wins that come through, they're not a result of him adapting or adjusting. They're a result of just, as we mentioned, Giannis just going off, and then they just don't address the issue. And then we have these on pace for 70 win seasons, and they think, oh, everything's perfect. And then they just get slapped in the face the same time every postseason. So
it's almost like you can write every year how the Bucks season will go.
I mean, I might look like a genius predicting the Heat, but I don't think it was that crazy. It was pretty easy to see that. I think they were the least surprising upset I've ever seen. That type of team always beats them. Not every team has I mean, that's why they're normally so dominant in the regular season. Not every team has the personnel to execute that game plan, but that game plan always works, build up a wall and watch Budenholzer tell Giannis to run through it instead of using players. They've got one of the best isolation players in the league in Chris Middleton, and one of the best playmakers in the league in Drew Holiday. What an upgrade from Eric Bledsoe to Drew Holiday, and they're just not using it. They're playing the same way. So it's just frustrating to see.
Do you think there's any personal changes they need, or do you think it's solely on the coach? Yeah,
strictly schematic changes. And we go back to I think we talked about Giannis after he signed his extension. It's looking like a mistake right now because I think he should have resigned, but I think he should sign a shorter deals to put the pressure on them to make these changes because they're getting too comfortable, and Budenholzer is definitely too comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely is, and he's been this way his whole coaching career. He seems like a very stubborn guy. He finds a system that he likes and he sticks to it no matter what. But I think what you said about Giannis signing that contract is very true as well. The front office needs to realize that, okay, you've got Giannis for all these years, but you need to start. Would you not want to start turning that into actual meaningful success? Is just having a superstar on your roster, is that enough for you as a front office?
Also,
and it shows their ambition. If that is enough, then that's unacceptable. I think
a 5-year no contract is that secure anymore. Look at everyone that signed a Supermax. They didn't finish they did not finish, the contract on that same team. There aren't these players have too much power now to where they are forcing these trades. And believe me, like, these years go quickly. So you want to keep Giannis for the whole prime. And then it's just not great. And also, before I was reluctant, I was like, okay, let's give Bud a chance because, simply because, when you fire a coach mid-season, who's your alternative? But the thing is, like, his issue is adjustments. It doesn't take a great coach to win a championship all the time. You have coaches like Ty Lue, or they're not like crazy. They don't have some insane scheme, but they make those adjustments. Ty Lue made those adjustments when they were down 3-1. You just need a coach that will actually identify what his issues are, identify what his players are, and tailor your scheme to your personnel. But he just seems to run the same game plan regardless of his team.
Well, that concludes NBA Slander Hour. I think that was pretty tame from you. I was expecting a bit more, but yeah, we'll move away from the negatives and let's talk about a positive in the East, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. I know this is beginning to sound like a Brooklyn Nets podcast. We talk about them pretty much every week, but they're really putting it together now. 7-3 in their last 10. An impressive win against the Lakers. 21-point win against the Lakers. Just beat the Clippers last night by 4. And this is all without KD. James Harden is looking amazing right now. Kyrie Irving is looking amazing right now. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, so I don't even need to say what he's looking like. They've got 3 superstars who are shooting 50% from the field and 40% from 3, so they're doing it amazingly efficiently as well. James Harden is leading the league in assists. Josh, is this what you foresaw would happen with the Nets when they put all 3 of these players together?
Yeah, just one more stat that is absolutely insane. They currently have 6 players that are shooting over 40% from 3, with Joe Harris at 50, Tyler Johnson at 50, Jeff Green at 44, KD at 43, Kyrie at 42, and James Harden at 41. And they have Landry Shamet, who is, just under 40 himself, and Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot as well. So they could get 8 players shooting at 40%.
Wow.
And, their offense just has so much potential. It is like our defense is the only thing we ever say about them. Their offense has the potential to be one of the best of all time. And it has shown to be so far. So, that's what makes them so scary. And, all of those concerns about fit have just gone out the window. They're just elite. They have the skills that can fit together. It's literally just about mindset. And they've shown that they have that mindset where, they're all at stages where they're about winning.
Yeah, it feels like to me that there's kind of no egos on this team, although they're three MVP quality players. Each of them are knowing what role they have to take to best benefit the team and turn these into wins. And I think that was shown when Kyrie said to James Harden, "You're the point guard, I'm the shooting guard." Although traditionally Kyrie Irving is a point guard, they know their roles. Kyrie is the guy that's going to get you 30, and James Harden might also get you 30, but he'll get you 15 assists as well. He's really stepped up as the playmaker for that team. And in the last two, although for most of the season their defense has been horrible, they've really put the clamps on the Lakers and the Clippers. They held the Lakers to under 100, held the Clippers to 108. So I think if they add that to their game, the ceiling for this Nets team is I think a championship with defense added to this offense.
Yeah, they don't need to have a tremendous defense, top 5 defense. With the capabilities of this offense, they just need to have an average defense. They can't be the worst defense of all time, but if they have an average defense, which they're definitely capable of doing, I've seen Harden make a push towards actually starting to use his athletic gifts to play well defensively, because he's always been a good post defender, and he's starting to show his perimeter defense as well. KD is KD, and even Kyrie. He's shown in big moments, in the finals that he can really put that effort there. So they can just get some more personnel in these trades. I'm not liking these big name, trade or acquisitions. They don't need Andre Drummond. They just need to address these defensive issues. They don't need, JJ Redick or anything like that. Their offense is secure.
Yeah.
They just need.
They got enough 3-point shooting as well.
Yeah, they just need a rim protection, and they need, some wings that will do that. And obviously, last night I think there was a pretty controversial, a whole podcast episode slandering Patrick Beverley after he intentionally injured Russell Westbrook. But he looked like he did another one there with Jeff Green last night, who's a part of their offense and defense. So we hope Jeff Green can return soon.
Yeah, he's a big part of that team. 100%, and he always seems to find himself on a contender, Jeff Green, and you can see why. He really fits well into any system, I feel like. But what do you make of these rumors? What do you make of these rumors surrounding DeMarcus Cousins? Obviously, he got bought out by the Rockets, so he's now a free agent. Would you like to see DeMarcus Cousins in a Brooklyn Net uniform?
Normally, I would say, if it was a trade, I would say, they don't need that. But if it's, it's a free agency situation, so there's no pain, there's no issue with. Cousins has shown this year that he's not completely done and that he can contribute. Obviously, it was a strange situation with the Rockets that he was kind of thrusted into, but I think he can definitely contribute. So yeah, why not? Add him to that. Anything that puts DeAndre Jordan back on the bench is good in my books.
And also, it might be a scenario where Boogie also pushes DeAndre Jordan to be even better. He might see his starting spot under fire and maybe step his own game up. So I feel like that's a move that makes a lot of sense. You're adding another bit of length to the team, and you also you got two centers with a lot of experience that can grab rebounds, protect the paint a bit, which is what the Nets have really needed. So I feel like this is a no-brainer for me. And as you said,
Cousins is another selfless player.
Cousins is definitely not done in this league.
He's a selfless player, as he showed during his time with the Warriors. So he definitely he wouldn't hurt. He definitely wouldn't hurt.
And he can also shoot the three as well. So that would I think that he ticks all the boxes for them. That's a no-brainer. But apparently the Lakers are also looking at a reunion as well. So I guess he's got the pick of the bunch. There's not much else we need to say about the Nets. They look really scary at the moment for the league. And I do see them now. I feel like they could be anyone in the 7-game series now with that offense and this improving defense. And those two wins over the LA teams, those are massive statements, especially on the defense. I think even more importantly, the defensive end, that they can hold two elite offensive teams as well to low scoring figures. Well,
they went into Los Angeles and swept.
Yeah,
They swept the LA trip, so that is huge. That's huge
dominated the
for
Staples Center.
that's big for their confidence as well without KD. So it's great to see.
All right, I just wanted to mention one last topic just quickly before we get off and go to our lecture in half an hour. We're cutting it close, but I just wanted to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers quickly. The Cleveland Cavaliers started the season surprising everyone. We're right in that playoff race. It seemed like. Then they lost 10 in a row. They are currently sitting at 10-21 after a 10-game losing streak. By far the coldest team in the league right now. Even the Wizards have leapfrogged them.
Good. I don't blame them for losing to the Thunder last night. Shea went up. Oh, whoa! Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 6, nearly 7 players in double figures. That's
yeah.
Nice.
Well, I mean,
they're falling off a bit.
The Cavaliers obviously, they started the season with a kind of a different roster to what they have now. Larry Nance Jr. was really good for them.
14th in the East. Oh man.
What'd you say?
I've literally just looked at them on the table. 14th.
Yeah, they've lost 10 straight, and it's kind of gone unnoticed. Because I think this is kind of 10-21 is kind of what we expected from the Cavaliers. Obviously, they started hot, but now they've cooled right down. Even the Wizards have leapfrogged them, who were on a 4-game winning streak, by the way. Which who would have thought that? But the Cavaliers look really bad right now. Obviously, they lost Larry Nance Jr. to an injury. Andre Drummond is sitting because they're looking to part ways with him. Jarrett Allen has come in and been good. Colin Sexton's still been steady. But I saw a stat ever since Colin Sexton said the Cavaliers are back. They've lost 10 straight. So maybe don't tempt fate there, Colin. Maybe keep your mouth shut for a bit longer than the first 20 games of the season.
He's not his statements don't always come to ground. I remember when he got drafted and he said, "Oh, LeBron, stay. Let's run it back."
Yeah, they're getting punished for that awful nickname in Sexland. I don't think that should catch on. I don't like that at all.
Cavs players, they don't have the best history of quotes. You had Tristan Thompson after LeBron left saying, "You have to go through us. Still, the East still goes through us." But anyway, I don't think you need to overreact. I think you can just take
to 10 straight.
No. I'm talking about the long game here. They're clearly moving towards the future.
Yeah.
They don't gain anything from making the playoffs anyway. Obviously, they want to still keep going, and it's great to see that the young players, they have it. You don't want to have a losing culture and lose on purpose, obviously, but this comes with the territory of having a young team. They were ahead of schedule in how they were performing, but it's still good. It's a good trend to see. It's good to see, for confidence and things like that. They'll get through this. They're where we expected them to be, and obviously the Wizards are now on a 4-game winning streak. So you're seeing some of those teams that were expected to be in that playoff race start to actually come back now.
Mm-hmm.
The table overall is starting to look more.
The Bulls as well knocking on the door, of the playoffs. Expect to see them there, and Zach LaVine should have been an all-star starter, but I'm not mad about it. Yeah, but the Cavs. I think this is more of a self-induced tank than anything. I think they saw Larry Nance go down, and that was kind of the first domino that fell, and told the front office that, okay, maybe we should then start to move on from Andre Drummond. We've got enough big men on this roster. Move on from Andre Drummond. Maybe try to get some value out of him. If not, they might even buy him out. Jarrett Allen, as I said, he's been good in those minutes. He fits the timeline of those two guards. And why not get a high draft pick as well? So, I think this is definitely a self-induced tank.
Yeah. The quicker that they can move towards, just completely committing to the young players, the more they can really start the process. Because you saw with us, with OKC, that, now we've really committed to it. Obviously, it's great, to have a season like we had last year where it's fun for the fans to see, that underdog team rise up. But at the end of the day, you really want to get towards the future. And you're kind of just delaying the process if you still commit to players like Andre Drummond, and so you might as well just make that shift and completely commit to one side, to one path.
Yeah, and then give those young guys who you see as part of that long-term future extra reps, so they can adapt to this league quicker. Like Isaac Okoro, who has been playing tons of minutes for the Cavs, and that will only help him in the long run. So it's clear to see their philosophy now.
Now's the time to identify who is going to be part of that future.
Yeah, for sure. I think we'll look back at that Jarrett Allen trade as a really smart one for the Cavs. It's another third piece they have around that promising backcourt. So yeah,
Rockets are not looking great right now.
Yeah, Rockets.
That trade. Oof.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking really. And now that they've lost they bought out DeMarcus Cousins, it kind of looks even worse. I don't know what they're like. It doesn't look like they have a strategy at all. But I think we should probably save the Rockets for another episode. But yeah, thank you everyone as always for listening to our podcast. We'll be back probably towards the end of the week. Thank you all for listening, and we're out. Peace.